Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to the Salesforce Admins webinar, Master the Lightning Report Builder Service Dashboard. My name is Mark Baseman, and I'm an admin evangelist here at Salesforce. With me today is Liz Skates, Senior Product Manager at Salesforce.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Liz, and thanks so much for joining us. So before we start our webinar, I do have to remind you of our forward-looking statement. Salesforce is a publicly traded company, so please make your purchasing decisions only on the products and services that are currently available. We are going to make some forward-looking statements today, so fair warning. Please connect with us on all the social things. So we are on Twitter at Salesforce Admins No I. You can connect with other awesome admins using the hashtag AwesomeAdmin. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube as Salesforce Admins. And don't forget about our terrific website, admin.salesforce.com, where you can find the Salesforce Admins podcast hosted by Jillian Bruce, and blog posts and other great resources. And yes, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording and slides will be posted to the webinar recap page. So stay tuned for that. That will come out hopefully in a few days. If you have questions throughout this webinar, please join the admin webinar group on the Trailblazer community, and you can see the bit.ly URL here. It's called Salesforce Admins Webinars, and you don't need to wait until the end to ask your question. You can post there. Time permitting, we will do some live Q&A at the end, but there's a lot of great content in this webinar, so if we don't get to answer it live, we will for sure tackle it on the community itself. So go ahead and pop into the Salesforce Admins webinars to post your question. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about building service reports. We're going to highlight the key feature of bucket columns. We're going to talk about one dashboard to rule them all. We're going to do the key concepts of conditional formatting and dashboard filters. We're going to do a live demo. And Liz is going to do all that stuff. I'm going to share a couple of resources, and then again, time permitting, we'll do that live Q&A. So let's set the stage here with our scenario. So Liz and I both work for SwagCo. SwagCo produces custom plush toys and uses Salesforce to manage our customer service. Liz and I work together to gain insights on how our support is doing at SwagCo. And I didn't mention it earlier, but this is the second in a series of webinars that we're doing. Both of these scenarios are based on SwagCo. This one is based on the support scenario. So I have some key business questions that I need answered. How many cases were closed this month? What's our average customer satisfaction or CSAT score? How long does it take for us to resolve cases by each of those support channels? And what's the current workload for each of our support agents? So as the service manager, this is what I'm looking for. And Liz, as the Salesforce administrator at SwagCo, is going to help answer these questions. Liz, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. So now that Mark has shared these questions that he has about the service at SwagCo, I'm looking at those 4 questions, and it sounds to me that like Mark wants both an overall view of how his team is doing, as well as he wants some insights into individual agent performance. If you look at that last question he has about the current workload for the support agents, that tells me he wants to kind of have these metrics answered on both a team level as well as individual level. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I'm building these reports and dashboard for Mark. So let's move forward and try to build those reports to answer those 4 questions that Mark has. Now, if you had tuned into the previous Master the Lightning Report Builder webinar, you'd be familiar with these 4 steps I had outlined that any report you create in Salesforce should follow. So we're going to follow these 4 steps to create these service reports. For step 1, let's zero in on which records in Salesforce we're going to use to answer those questions. Now, the first 3 business questions that Mark had posed about how many cases were closed, what's the average CSAT score, and how long it takes for us to resolve cases, when I think about it, it's actually all about metrics on cases that have been closed this month. So because these are metrics on the same set of records in Salesforce, I'm going to use one report to answer those three metrics. And it'll be a case report type. I'm going to choose some display columns, like the CSAT score, of course, how long the case was open before it was closed, like the age. And then the only filter I need to worry about is that it was closed sometime during this month. And then for the fourth business question that Mark had, what the current workload is for his agents, it looks like it's still going to be case records, but this time we're looking for case records that are not yet closed. They're still open. So it's going to have to be a separate report that I create to answer that question that Mark has. So that will be the second report that we build today. Step 2 is to format those reports so that we can calculate those metrics. Now, mapping out those 4 questions again, remember I wanted one report to answer the first 3 questions and another report for the fourth question. Now, I propose, since Mark had asked a lot of questions about the team level performance of how many cases were closed, but then he also wanted to know about the workload for individual agents, I'm proposing that we actually group a lot of these records also by who owns them so that we can get more information and we can get breakdowns not on just the team level, but also on the case owner level. So I'm proposing that we group the rows by case owner. And then additionally, one of those questions was interested in how the numbers break down by each individual channel. And so I'm proposing that we group the columns by case channel for these first 3 questions, which gives us a matrix format for the report. The fourth question, since we're only interested in the breakdown by agent, I'm going to say let's use a summary format and group the rows by case owner. So you'll see for the first report, if we group the rows by case owner and the columns by case origin, we get these breakdowns, and you still get the team average at the very top, how many records were closed by the entire team, the average CSAT for the entire team, as well as the breakdowns per owner and per channel. Now, let's say Mark tells me, in reality, even though cases can be submitted in so many different ways, email, phone, website, community, Q&A, so on and so forth, that's a little too granular for what he wants to keep track of. Let's say there's only 4 or 5 different major channels that he wants to track his team performance on. So that brings us to a key concept of bucket columns. So with bucket columns, you can kind of create on the fly kind of a virtual column to use just in your report that's based off of a real column in Salesforce. And so we can say, hey, we have that real column of case origin, but I want to create a virtual column that maps to what I call a major channel, and then I use that new virtual column in my report to either sort, group, or filter. So in our case origin is a pick list field, so I can say, hey, in this pick list, there's all these different values that the case origin can have, and I'm going to map them to the 4 or 5 different buckets that I actually want to show in my report. So website and community cases get lumped into the same bucket called web, let's say. And so once I've created that new bucket column, and I use that bucket column in my report instead of the original column, now I have a much cleaner report that gives breakdowns on just those 4 or 5 different channels. Now for the second report that I created, which was a summary format, I just need to break everything down by a case owner and get the performance numbers by each person. Now, step 3 in creating that report is, now that we have the right format, let's just calculate those metrics. Again, for those 4 business questions, a lot of these, such as how many cases were closed this month, it's just counting how many records were closed this month, so that's just a simple row count. For the average CSAT score, it's just taking the average of the values in that custom CSAT field. Finding out how long it takes for us to resolve cases by channel is also just taking the average, this time of the age column, or we might want to get the max value to see if there's any cases that have been open a little too long. And then for the current workload for each agent, we just have to count how many cases are currently open for each agent. So that's pretty straightforward. And in the Lightning Report Builder, we just click on the field that we want to calculate those metrics for, and average and max are available as just checkboxes for us to select. And then the final step, which is really fun, is to now add charts to to more visually see those metrics. And this brings us to two additional key concepts. When we show these metrics on charts, it's nice to draw the eye to some more important numbers. So if you want to say, hey, you know, I want to set some thresholds for when we should really be concerned about either the CSAT score or the number of escalated cases that an agent is working on, we can use conditional formatting. And then additionally, bringing back that same concept before where we talked about Mark wanting to see metrics both on the team level as well as agent level, we can use dashboard filters so that when Mark views his dashboard, he can not filter by anything and just see the team metrics, or choose to apply a filter such as on the case owner and then have the entire dashboard refresh to calculate metrics just for that particular support agent. And so once we apply those two concepts, now in the dashboard, you have this case owner field filter at the top, which by default can be left to all. So then you see team metrics for the entire team. So cases closed this month by the entire team, average CSAT score for the entire team, and then you can also escalate if there's any cases that have been open too long. Or if you were to choose to filter by, let's say, Brenda service, then the entire dashboard refreshes and you see that Brenda closed only 14 of those cases from this month, and her average CSAT score, how that differs from the team. And that's all we all we need to do to create the dashboard for Mark. But let's go and actually do this together live. So I actually already have in my Salesforce org a report I created called Cases Closed This Month. So all it is filtered on cases that were had a close date of this month. And I already created it in matrix format, so it's grouped by case owner, and the columns are grouped by this case origin field. And this actually has a lot of great info for me already. And the cool thing is, you notice how there's a lot of case origins. So I kind of scroll a lot horizontally to see all the different breakdowns of case origins. One thing I can do now in the Spring 19 release is there's this option at the bottom, a toggle called Stacked Summaries, that I can click on so that I can see all the metrics actually displayed vertically. And so now my report is a lot more narrow, and I can see all the CSAT and the average age vertically for each agent. I can see all the case origins all in one page. Another cool thing, which you might notice in Spring 19, is I can zero in. So on this matrix report, if I'm interested in, hey, just the cases that Brenda Service owns, but that were submitted, let's say, through the phone channel, phone case origin, I can click on that intersection between what Brenda owns and the phone channel to see the detail records. And in this case, I'm expecting just 4 records that are owned by Brenda that were submitted via the phone. So this matrix format in Spring 19 is really great to zero in on just the area of the report that I'm interested in and see the records pertinent to that area. But remember, we don't want to have so many case origins. Let's create the bucket column. So I'm going to edit the report. And here in my report, it is grouped by case owner and case origin, but I've also wanted to add a bucket column. In the outline panel, there is an option to add a bucket column. I've already created one called case channel, so I'm going to click on it to edit it. And I've already created 3 buckets so that phone and, let's see, any mobile device submitted cases are bucketed as phone channels. I can add another bucket. I'm going to say that Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn cases all should be moved to a new bucket that I call social media. And there I've created those 4 buckets right there. I'm going to leave email unbucketed. It'll just be its own separate bucket. Click apply. And then I have the case channel bucket updated. Now my report is still grouped by case origin, but I don't want to do that anymore. I want to use my buckets. I'm going to remove the case origin field and then group by the case channel. So I'm going to group the columns by this case channel bucket column. Save and run. And now my report is just shown by the 5 different buckets from case channel. I can also now add this to my dashboard. I've got all the metrics that I need in this one report. I'm going to choose the Add to Dashboard option, add this to my dashboard. I'm going to add to a new. I'm going to use, I don't have to use the same chart from the report. I'm going to add this report actually 3 times to this dashboard. First time, I'll just show a metric of a count of how many cases were closed this month. And I'm going to say, yes, if we've closed at least 50 cases this month, that's not bad, but 75 is better. And then we have a metric. You might notice in Spring 19 that there's actually more columns now that you have available when you're building your dashboard. Instead of 9, you can actually have 12 rows across. So you have a lot more options. I could even make this metric really small and narrow if I wanted, or really big across the 12 different columns available to me now. And I'm going to add that same report for cases closed this month, and this time I'm going to show the average CSAT score. And I'm going to say any score, average CSAT score from 0 to 60 is not that great, but 60 to 80 is okay, and 80 to 100 is really what we want. And I'm going to call this the average CSAT. And then finally, I'm also going to add that same report again to answer the question about the average, how long it takes to resolve our cases by channel. I'll use that bar chart, but I'm going to group it by the channel, the case channel, and we're going to look at the average age. That'll tell me how long it takes to resolve cases. And I'm going to call this chart average resolution time by channel. I can go up here. So I've answered 3 of Mark's questions here in the dashboard so far. Oops, I didn't spell average correctly. We'll go to reports now and look at the second report we want to add to our dashboard. Remember, we wanted to look at the current agent workload. And so I have a report here already created, which is the currently open cases for my team. You'll actually notice in Spring 19 now, when I look at this report, in this particular report, I've actually already added conditional formatting. That's available now in Spring 19, so that when we do aggregates, like in this case, I'm counting like finding out what the oldest cases are that are currently open, and we can set a threshold for, hey, the oldest one is 10 days old, that's okay, but some of these are open 19 days, that's kind of concerning, so they're highlighted in different colors. I want to highlight that for Mark too in his dashboard, but if I want to do that in a dashboard, we'll do a separate conditional highlighting. I'm going to add this report to that same dashboard, the Service Manager dashboard, and we're going to put it in what I like to use as a Lightning dashboard table. I want to show by case owner a count of all the number of escalated cases on average and the maximum age for how long they've been open, and just a count of how many cases each owner has. And we're going to check on this box, add conditional highlighting. So let's say if, let's see, did I get escalated? I didn't want escalated. I don't want a sum of how many cases were escalated and an average, let's say, or max of how long they've been open. And so now when I do conditional formatting, I can do, let's say if there's any escalated cases, let's say 1 case is okay. But if they start to have 2 cases, that's not good. And then if any more than that, then let's highlight that in red. So then now we can call this escalated cases, open cases. And then let's add that same report again, because the last thing we wanted to do was also not just show the escalated cases, but just the general workload for each agent. So I'm going to leave a bar chart, let's do a stacked bar chart by owner, and just a record count of how many they have open. And we'll call this open cases by agent. And then we can save that. Now the last thing is, remember, again, we wanted Mark to be able to see both the team level metrics and individual agent performance numbers. So I'm going to add a filter. There's a button up here to add a dashboard filter, and I'm going to let Mark filter by the case owner. And I'm going to add the filter values. I'm going to let him filter by Brenda service, or by Jay service, or Linda. And then I've added my dashboard filter, save. And now let's run this dashboard. And you'll see that the dashboard filter appears. By default, it's for the team level. So I know the team closed 56 cases, and it had an average CSAT score of 75. We have some agents who might have a case that's been escalated, but nothing too major. And we know generally how much workload each agent has. That's on a team level. Now, if I choose to filter down by, let's say, just Brenda, the dashboard will refresh. And now I see that Brenda has closed 20 cases this month. Her average CSAT score is actually slightly higher than the team average. She doesn't have any cases that are escalated, and we know exactly how many cases she's currently working on and how long it takes for her to close cases in each of the various channels. All right, so let's summarize what we just did here. We followed those 4 steps to find the cases that were either closed this month or are currently open. We used a bucket column so that we could get metrics for that new bucket called channel. We calculated the average CSAT score and found out the average age or the maximum age for some of these cases. And then we added various charts and a lightning table to a dashboard for Mark to view. And by doing so, now Mark has an idea of how happy our customers are with our service, whether our team is handling the case volume pretty well, and how well each individual agent is doing with their performance. Now, that's a lot of features we've covered, but guess what? There's more coming in summer 19. You'll be able to create and edit historical tracking reports in Lightning. Row-level formulas, which is a very popular idea in the Idea Exchange, will now, in summer 19, in beta status, will let you apply formulas not just on a grouping, but on individual records in a report. Scheduled dashboard refreshes so that you don't necessarily have to subscribe, but the dashboard is refreshed on a regular interval is coming in summer 19 as well. Mark?
Thanks, Liz. That was amazing. So let me give you all some resources before we go into Q&A. We do have some time for questions, which is great. So Trailhead, hopefully everyone on this webinar all knows about Trailhead. The Lightning Reports and Dashboards module, the Reports and Dashboards Specialist Super Badge, and the Build Advanced Analytics Dashboards project are great places for you all to start. Also, don't forget about good old help and training. Salesforce Analytics Overview help article has a lot of great useful information. And of course, as we mentioned several times, this is the second in the series. So take a look and listen to the first in the series, Master the New Lightning Report Builder. And that URL is in the Salesforce Admins webinars group. And for those of you that have asked, I actually posted the link in the community as well as a comment on the post. So Excuse me. So wrapping up, again, we're going to do a couple of questions right now. At the end of the webinar, please fill out our GoToWebinar survey. We really do value what you think of these webinars. We want to make sure they're useful for you. And as we mentioned, the slides and recording will be posted live within a couple of days after this. So hopefully you will get those shortly. So we have a couple of questions that have come in here. So Liz, the first one is there a limit on the number of bucket columns that you can have in a report?
Oh, there are plenty of limits. In terms of the number of bucket columns, I'm thinking it's 5.
Okay.
It's 5 per report.
We
will
double check. Yeah, we'll double check. We think it's 5. Here's another great question about dashboard filters. And there's kind of 2 questions here. One is, what types of fields are supported by the dashboard filter? So we saw, like pick lists, for example, plain text fields. Are there any types of fields that we should avoid using as dashboard filters?
I can't think of particular types of fields so much that you need to worry about, but just be aware that you can only choose the filter that will apply to all the report types that are used in that dashboard. Right. So in my example, I used case owner because all the reports in that dashboard have a case owner field that you could filter on. So if the reports don't have certain common fields, you're not going to be able to filter by them in that dashboard.
Got it. This is a follow-up to that same question, which is there any way to keep the filter synced, in this case, with active users rather than manually creating it? So essentially having the filter value synced to the original field value.
That would be a great improvement request, and right now I don't believe we have anything to support that. Okay.
Do you know what the maximum number of components permitted in a dashboard is?
The maximum number of components supported in a dashboard has not changed. It is still 20. The only difference now in 319 is that you have 12 rows available to you, so it just gives you more flexibility in how you format those 20 components in the dashboard.
Got it. Here's an interesting question. Can you bucket on null values?
At this point, I don't believe you can. I can go confirm later. I don't believe you can bucket on a null value. But this might be something that you could probably solve when row level formulas become available later in summer 19.
Very cool. Let's see. There's a question about, can you show us how to create the bucket? Would you mind popping back into your demo very briefly to kind of just show how you originally created the bucket?
Okay, let's go back to cases closed. I have a currently created bucket there, but let's go and add another bucket from scratch.
Cool.
So I'm going to go in the outline panel. Under here, there is add bucket column as an option. And then so right now, case owner was the last one I had bucketed, so it shows up as a default. But here, it'll show me all the fields in that report type I have available to bucket. And if I choose a pick list, yes, you get the pick list values that you can bucket. You can map them to any bucket values. If I were to choose something like a, let's see, age something, then that's more of a numeric field. Then I have to set ranges. And I can add ranges of an age of up to 5 is called small age. An age from 5 to 10 is considered medium, let's say. Anything from 10 to 15, I can add more if I want. Extra large. So the 3 data types that you can bucket right now are pick list values, numeric columns like the age, and then strings. Any questions?
Awesome.
Yeah.
There's one more question, and actually I think I know the answer to this, which is there a maximum number of filter values that can be applied to a dashboard filter?
Yes. 50 filter values per filter in a dashboard filter.
Got it. And you can have how many dashboard filters?
3 per dashboard, 3 filters per dashboard.
Fantastic. All right, we are out of time, but thank you all so much for joining us. We hope this was a valuable webinar. If we didn't get to your question, we will answer it in the community. I know there are a couple that we didn't get to, but thanks so much for joining us today, and let us know if you found it valuable. And thank you, Liz. Fantastic.